It's the start of a new anime season, and everyone looks at the new shows seeing what they will watch, what they won't watch, and or what they decide to put in their backlog. You read the description to one show, and it looks interesting. Once the first episode is out, you enjoy it, but there's something that's giving you the wrong feeling about this show. Some people can have this skepticism when watching a new show on what direction the story will take, and this skepticism isn't necessarily a bad thing. For example, when people had started Erased, a lot of individuals found it enjoyable, but grew a tad skeptical when it came to the time travel aspect of the series, since they weren't sure how well that plot point was going to get resolved. I don't really have a problem with this, as it is people taking a look at the show they are watching, and speculating what will happen in the show later based on the show's own merits and demerits. But others take a more extreme viewpoint to this, and that's where I start to have a problem. People will already have these preconceived notions on what the show will be like based on something like the studio, and pretty much write it off based upon that. Some will say that the show will automatically suck because this studio made it, which is pretty much writing a show off before it even began. This is bad for a number of reasons. For starters, it's very closed-minded, since really the only true way one can get an idea of how a show will be is by watching the show. One can make speculations, yes, but a clear-cut answer cannot be defined simply by the studio who produced the show. Another big reason this is a poor way to look at things is because most anime are done by freelance workers, which means that just because your least favorite studio makes a new show, it doesn't mean the show will automatically suck because different people work on the show. Even if it's a studio with a lot of the same people, such as, say, Shaft or Kyoto Animation, one can still be pleasantly surprised. This isn't the same thing as basing it off its premise, overall aesthetic, and genres, because that's based off one's own actual tastes and preferences in how the story is told. For example, if one sees a promo for Haikyuu, and they already don't care for sports anime, while I would say that's a bit closed-minded, it's at least basing it off what the show is, rather than what studio made the show. This extreme train of thought has been proven true many times. Take, for example, Studio Gonzo, one of my least favorite studios, who has produced many train wrecks including Burst Angel, Hellsing, and Trinity Blood. Those shows ended up being bad in spite of their somewhat interesting premises. That being said, that doesn't mean everything Studio Gonzo has done is bad, since they've produced quite a few shows that are worth checking out. Hell, Studio Dean is one of the biggest punching bags in the anime community, yet they've made a huge comeback within the winter 2016 season, producing 2 extremely well-received shows. It's especially annoying when people look at a show, watch the first episode or first few episodes, then say it will be a train wreck based entirely on the studio that made it, or on the fact that it's a Noitamina show, or whatever reason that it isn't based on what the show's actually shown, since from my perspective, that's basically waiting for the show to fail. I ultimately think people do this because they're outright afraid of being wrong, which leads me to my main point. People shouldn't be afraid to be wrong about anime. Maybe the show will end up going in a bad direction. Maybe it will completely fail at everything it set out to do. But it's good now, so just enjoy it while it's good. Maybe you'll end up liking the entire thing. Maybe not. But if you're wrong, so what? If people laugh in your face for thinking a show would turn out good, then they're the wrong ones. It doesn't make your initial impressions without credibility, as from your perspective, it had given you the impression it was going to continue to be good. That was your own informed speculation based on what was presented to you within the series. One YouTube channel in particular is based entirely on predicting how anime will turn out, and that's Anime Elimination. He bases whether or not he deems the anime worth checking out on the first 3 episodes. And sometimes he makes a good call, other times he doesn't. Does it make his opinions not credible? Of course not. He's still looking at the show and giving his thoughts on how good it is based upon the content presented. It's very much an informed opinion, making it have some worth to it. Another thing people should keep in mind is that the other side of the extreme isn't much better. People always say, "Oh, I wish Madhouse would do an adaptation of this show." And while Madhouse has done a lot of great shows over the years, their game doesn't automatically guarantee quality. They've done a lot of bad shows as well, especially in more recent years since a lot of their bigger names have left the studio. It's also, once again, a studio made up entirely of freelancers. For example, Shingo Natsume, director of One Punch Man, doesn't specifically work at Madhouse. He also co-directed Space Dandy, which was a Bones production. A studio doesn't automatically make the show a masterpiece. Bones is my favorite studio, and I'll fanboy over a lot of shows people didn't like from them, but even I can't defend every single anime they've ever put out. That's because a lot of things can go wrong during an anime production, and the people making it are only human. Even the greats of anime can botch things up every once in a while. Or maybe they'll do their job and the writing wasn't all there, or the source material wasn't all that great to begin with. When I look at something like Gangsta, yes, I thought it was going to be great because I love Shuko Murase, and I love his directing style. And yes, he did a great job with the show's direction, tone, and atmosphere, but other factors ended up leaving me underwhelmed with the show. Animation is a collaborative process, and one name or one studio doesn't guarantee anything. It can give a lot of confidence as to how good the show will end up being, but it doesn't automatically make the show a masterpiece. As a whole, what I'm trying to say with this video is that one should speculate how good a show will be based off its own merits and its own faults, rather than because this studio did it so it's gonna suck. You don't have to love every studio, I certainly don't, but if a show's premise interests you, then give it a watch because you might end up liking it. At the same time, don't necessarily think that your favorite studio or director is invincible, because at the end of the day, not everything a studio or director cranks out will be great. I'm not gonna tell you how you should go about watching anime, all I can do is simply recommend that you be reasonable and you be fair. Thank you for watching. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more of my content. By the way, a buddy of mine named Cyanide Blizzard recently had his channel taken down due to copyright nonsense, but he started it back up and is having a rough start trying to rebuild his audience, so I definitely recommend checking his stuff out. His content is funny, informative, and certainly worth a watch. Plus, he's a good person too. Annotations here, as well as a link in the description just in case. And once again, I appreciate you putting in the time to check this out.